Okay, welcome to our summer series here at Art of Dedication, EBC. It was great last week to hear about millennials and their experience, how they think, what are their problems, how they differ from baby boomers like myself. Today we have Rachel, and Rachel's going to be looking at the whole area of creativity. We too are creators, and I think she's very much able to do this because of the creativity that's been part of her life ever since probably we were born. I don't know, but you know, most of us know that you've been into theatre. Mm-hmm. Tell me very quickly your biog, very quick. Mm-hmm. Where were you born?
I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, actually. I first lived in Brookline with my parents. We lived in a tiny apartment attic of my grandparents' apartment. And then we moved actually quite a bit around Massachusetts.
Okay. And you were homeschooled, am I right?
Mm-hmm, up until 7th grade. And then for 7th and 8th grade, I went to a private Christian school in Natick. And then for 9th and 10th grade, I was homeschooled again. And then I went for 11th and 12th grade. I went to another private school, this time in Hyde Park, Boston.
Wow. And what got you involved with theatre? I don't want to take away from what you can do, but when did you get involved in theatre?
I think as soon as I could speak, I wanted to tell other people what to do, and that became part of the director in me as a little girl. I'll put it at that.
So do you direct your marriage as well? Not again.
I think I wanted to in the beginning, but I've learned my lesson. No.
And you've actually written a number of plays as well?
I have helped write, 5 original full-length plays, and then I wrote a bunch of really rough, probably miserable to look back at plays when I was in school.
Right. And you've played in a number of plays, and what of all the plays you've taken part in, which are the ones you've really enjoyed? How many Shakespeares have you done?
I have been in 3 Shakespeares. I do talk about a show that changed me.
Okay, so don't mention. I don't take anything away.
I won't talk about that, but I played a boy, Moth, in a Shakespeare show, Love's Labour's Lost, and I had always been told I would be typecast as like the cute little like young girl or woman or love interest. And to be cast as a boy was to me like the most exhilarating, exciting thing in the world.
He's a very naughty boy as well.
Very naughty.
He's an incredibly naughty boy in that
Very
Shakespeare
physical.
play.
I had to like jump on things and like climb up this pole and do many things that I just had always thought would be so fun. And I feel like that opened my eyes to the fact that I was just gonna break whatever typecast, and I was gonna audition for all different kinds of parts.
With that, over to you.
Yeah. So I am a sucker for quotes. So there are quite a few within this. I will try to read slowly, because what I've learned from experience is it is hard to understand a quote when it is being read to you rather than reading it yourself. So I will try and go slowly, but I do want to start with one. What do you think an artist is? An imbecile who only has eyes if he's a painter? Or ears if he's a musician? Or a liar in every chamber of his heart if he is a poet? Or even, if he is a boxer, just his muscles? Far from it. At the same time, he's also a political being, constantly aware of the heartbreaking, passionate, or delightful things that happen in the world that are shaping him. How could it be possible to feel no interest in other people, and with a cool indifference, to detach yourself from the very life which it brings to you so abundantly? No. Painting is not done to decorate apartments. It is an instrument of war. Pablo Picasso. Now, when I was a little girl, I was not waging war. I was dressing up my younger siblings, and I was forcing them to memorize terrible scripts that I wrote. I loved stories. I've always been an avid reader, and I have read everything in my mother's library. She was a lover of classics. I read from Charles Dickens to L.M. Montgomery to Robert Louis Stevenson to C.S. Lewis to Agatha Christie to Beatrix Potter to Graham Greene. And the list goes on. And I fell in love with characters. And I would even, to my shame, write heavily plagiarizing stories where I rewrote these classics, but just changed the names. And I would bring them to my mother, and she humored me countless times as I would read to her stories that were suspiciously similar to Anne of Green Gables or The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I was driven by a desire to be connected to stories. I wanted to be connected to the characters. I wanted to be a part of the narrative. My mom eventually kind of let me down easily, and the fact that I was really not writing anything original. And so I decided to take up a different method. This is going to sound very odd. I have shared this before, and it's, I guess, very odd, so bear with. But I went from writing stories to instead I would pace around my bedroom, and I would act out all of my stories. And I would be all of my characters. I would be the local gossip talking about everybody else in the town, or I would be the preacher. This is what I loved. I loved being these like very dramatic, melancholic characters who had to end up crying. And I would find this one plant in my mom's house, and I would put that, and that would be the invalid dying. And I would just sit there crying to the plant. Or I loved being the really, really bossy, keyword, the really, really bossy older sister who was constantly slighted in love, who got to yell at everyone else in the household. I loved it. I loved these characters. And I created timeless characters all by myself. I acted out every interaction, and beautifully, I should say, my parents did not find this odd or think me really antisocial because I would lock the door and tell everyone they weren't allowed to come in. But rather they thought this was awesome, and they encouraged me. And for me, that was, I think, the beginning of something that would start to shape my very being. My dad even purchased, so very sweet, he purchased a mic for me. I don't know if you've heard of it was like Dragon something. And you would stick it in your ear, and you could talk into it, and it would write onto the computer for you, into a document. The problem was, I walked in an actual circle, and so every time we'd get halfway through a sentence, I would pop the cord out. And so it didn't work. And so my dad always said it was so sad for him that so much of what I had created for literally probably 6 years of doing this was never captured. For me, it was the cornerstone of something that I would find within myself that didn't go away, even if it wasn't recorded. Regardless of this, and even though I did lock the door, my siblings and my parents would open the door the teeniest bit and sit in the door frame to listen to my stories. And I would always yell at my siblings and tell them, like, shut the door, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. And they would be begging me to keep it open. But I think that there was a part of me that felt like these stories and these characters were a part of myself that I wanted to keep to myself. And I will be honest, I think part of it was to escape. I had a loving family. It was not to escape them necessarily, but I was the eldest of 5 kids. And I think I wanted to be special. I think I wanted to be unique. I think I wanted to be significant or be a part of something significant beyond myself. And I felt like these heroines, these characters, pushed me into this kind of supernatural place. And for me, that was just incredible. I didn't start out as an actor when I was really little. Even though I did love these stories, I didn't see myself as an actor. I was a dancer. From when I was 3 years old, I was dancing, ballet. And it was only when I got to middle school that they needed people to be in the theater production. I was at a dance school that also did theater, musical theater down at the other end. and they were like, we need people to audition, and my dance teacher was like, Rachel, I think you need to go. You're so expressive. And people have always told me I can't hide anything because my face shows and tells it all. And so I did. I auditioned and I got in, and it was part of Midsummer Night's Dream, and I was forever changed. I couldn't go back, and I saw in that moment a connection between movement and creating stories. And for me, that pacing had begun, I think, the beginning of that there could be movement and stories, and that they were inexplicably intertwined for me. And so this journey of mine, I will get to a bigger point because I know I am talking quite a bit. The bigger story for me is I think I found a way of seeking this special and deeper connection with bringing glory to God and actually engaging in the world around me. So I titled the talk today, We Are All Creators, and I wrote that because I do believe it. If you don't wake up each day believing that you are a super creative person, I have a very difficult question for you to answer. Okay, and I'm looking for participation, but don't worry, you don't have to say anything or get up or anything. You just have to raise your hand if you dressed yourself today. So it might seem really reductionist to say, but to me, that is a sign of creativity. You put something together. Something as simple as an outfit, to me, as a symbol of a greater picture that we are creators. We were created by an incredibly creative God. And I see that there is something in us that wants to have our own mark on the creation that He's created. I want to read from Hebrews 13, and I'm reading from the Message. This is 13, and I don't even know what the verse is, but that's okay. Bear with me, it's in Hebrews 13. Make sure you don't take things for granted and go slack in working for the common good. Share what you have with others. God takes particular pleasure in acts of worship, a different kind of sacrifice that takes place in the kitchen and the workplace and on the streets. For me, this speaks again to how creativity does not have to look like one thing. It does not have to look like being a fine artist. Your office job, washing the dishes for the 2,550th time, feeding the ducks outside, to me these can all be acts of praising God. And when we are free to praise God and how He has created us, I believe that not only is beautiful, but I believe it also makes us creators and creative. We read in Ecclesiastes 3:11, He has made everything beautiful in its time. But the fact is, we don't always feel beautiful. Life doesn't always feel like a series of artistic opportunities. Life is difficult. But sometimes, and this part I love, when it comes to art, struggle in life is actually best. One famous playwright, this book is one of the fundamental books for me about theater. It's by David Mamet, who is an absolute genius, I believe. Very, very cynical person. So if you ever do read this, I apologize for his many cursing. And yes, he has a lot of opinions. But I believe that a lot of what he has to say gets to the heart of who we are and why we seek drama and how drama is different than art. Hang on, I'm going to find this passage for you that I thought was really beautiful. Theater is communal art. One of the best things I know about community is what St. Paul said. What I am for you frightens me, but I am with you comforts me. For you, I am a bishop. With you, I am a Christian. When you go into the theater, you have to be willing to say, we're all here to undergo a communion, to find out what the heck is going on in this world. If you are not willing to say that, what you get is entertainment instead of art, and poor entertainment at that. art is life-changing for me, and that can look really different for each person. Creating art as a vocation is not really everyone's call, and not all of us are going to be fine artists like Picasso, or geniuses like Steve Jobs, or Toni Morrison, or Ernest Hemingway. And it's okay. It's completely okay. Being a creator, like I said before, is as simple as choosing what you wear. Expressing who you are is praiseworthy when you give the glory to God. And honestly, I have seen it in my own life as a responsibility. I read this article, God's Call to Artists by Brian London. He writes, and this is, I think, so powerful, artists glorify God by making good art, just as Jesus glorified God by making good tables. And I feel like what we have been handed, what you have been handed, whatever it might look like, giving glory to God and finding ways to make something creative, in even small ways, is powerful. Vocation is a tricky thing, though. 7 years ago, I graduated from Gordon with a degree in theater. I had spent 4 years creating theater, directing theater, performing theater, writing theater, yes, but this time not plagiarizing. I had done a lot to pave the path of becoming a creative. But I graduated, as everyone does, as unsure as any other 22-year-old person. But something had happened to me in my last year. I had reluctantly auditioned for a show. My friend was writing a senior thesis, and she said she wanted to write her own show. And she was only casting 3 people in the show. And I had really no time to be in the show, but I was like, I'll do it anyway, it'll be fine. Like, I just want to try. I loved auditioning for things. I love auditions, just being there and having fun with people. And so I went, and I ended up getting into the show, and the show involved me becoming a 5-year-old little girl. And I still remember the first time we had written this show together, the first time there was an audience. And as I'm sure you can imagine, I do really love audiences because I really love interacting with people. And it was an interactive show, and it was the first time I was really doing an interactive show like this, in truth. And as soon as the audience came in, my first line, by the way, this entire show was improv. So it was my first line that I had to make up, was I just came out and I realized, and all that came out of my mouth was, I'm so glad that you're all here. And as soon as I said it, I realized that this was what I was made to do. I was made to invite people to do something different, to get excited, to be silly. And this show is incredibly silly. Essentially, you find out during the course of the show, as all of the people are sitting down, similar to how you are right now, you all learn that you are my stuffed animals. And we play make-believe, and at one point in the show, we are all on a square carpet, just about this big, so imagine all of us, there are 35 people at the show, everyone on the carpet, and we are all rowing for our lives, away from the bad guys, and we're singing, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, and everyone starts singing, and we are all acting like children, and having the time of our lives. And we're being silly, and no one is afraid, and everyone's just having fun, and everyone has a part to play. And that, for me, is when I discovered that for me, this kind of theater is a vocation. Because we are meant to be in community and experience this communion. And this is the opportunity that I have. Entertainment is really easy to come by. Art is where I believe intelligence meets beauty. Don't get me wrong, you don't need to be intelligent or beautiful to be a creator. But I think creativity rises out of engaging with life, like singing in your car. Entertainment meets expectations. We want to be shocked, or we want to see a happy ending. But art is innately transformative. Art invites experience, but for a greater good, not simply for a trick or for a gimmick or for a laugh, although art can be hilarious. Once again, David says it best, and I'm just sorry I read so much from this book, but it's just so very good. The purpose of theater, he believes, is not to fix social fabric, not to incite the less perceptive to wake up and smell the coffee, not to preach to the converted about the delights or the burdens of a middle-class life. The purpose of theater, like magic, like religion, is to inspire cleansing awe. And I think that for me, that cleansing awe of looking across the room at someone else and realizing that we are here together, that we're not separated by all the social fabric that tries to blind us from each other. For me, that's why I believe that we are created and created by a creator who has a lot of creed, who wants us to be connected and to engage. So I want to encourage you today that your craft can be very, very different than mine or from the person next to you. But give God the glory through the simplest creations. A finely crafted meal, a meaningful private poem, a silly dance with your daughter in the kitchen, singing the harmony but not the melody of your favorite song. Make a habit out of creating. Because although you don't feel sometimes like you are a creator, as one very creative and money-making writer once wrote, we become what we repeatedly do. So do be creative. That's all I have to share. I'm going to sit this time
Yeah,
now.
you can sit.
I do have a little activity, but I can.
Okay, whatever.
We have a little bit of time.
Yeah, we've got time, but I just, immediate responses or questions, just to begin with. This is a theme I totally love. Bible teaches very clearly in the first chapters of Genesis that we are made in the image of God. And God is a creator. And he has created little creators. And that's what we are. We're little creatures, but we're little creators as well. And when we discover we can create, life goes up. Or rather, it goes into depths, whatever one you want to take. Because we feel we've done something, we're in tune with the infinite. I'm quoting an old book that you might have read when you were in college, In Tune with the Infinite, Jim. I don't know why that's coming to mind, but don't worry. So let's begin. Any comments to begin, or questions to begin? And then we can take it. Ken, were you yawning?
No,
Oh, right.
that'll be later in the sermon.
Yeah. That was very creative. That's inside.
I'm being
Oh,
creative
that's wonderful.
now.
It's the best insult I've had all morning. Go on.
Yeah, the thing that I view creation with another word on almost the same level, and that's fear. You know, I'm afraid of creating. You ever experienced that kind of thought?
Yes. I don't think anyone who ever tries to do something of value doesn't feel afraid.
Why are you afraid?
I think
Why is Ken afraid?
probably what other people will think, or a sense of fear of failure. But I think it's just a facade so often, to be afraid, especially of what other people think. Because I think other people want it too. I think other people want to be free and to be childlike too. But I think it's very easy to feel afraid.
Why do you feel afraid?
Well, several reasons. Fear of failure, fear of success. They come hand in hand. I have a friend, several friends, but one of them is a very talented artist. And I've known him since our teenage years, and it took me a long time to realize that his primary motive was fear of success.
Fear of success.
What does that look like?
I think it becomes kind of a form of paralysis in a sense, it prevents you from going where you could be going, because you're afraid of what's gonna happen when you get there, what it would do to you. Because success is not always fun.
Mhm.
I.e., you witness the multi-millionaire athletes of the world. And it took me a long time to realize that's what was preventing him from stepping out there even more and really pushing his skills to what he had inside of him. And I think that's a very powerful fear.
Somebody you can come in.
Yeah, all my life I've been connected with creative people. As a friend of mine once said, you collect elephants. And the significant people in my life have always been phenomenally talented. I mean, just outrageously so. But they weren't successes by other people's measure. My second husband was a brilliant sword maker. Brilliant. Famous, the whole 9 yards.
You did create the sword, by the way,
by
for
Conan.
Conan the Barbarian,
Yeah.
you know the movie
Right.
Conan the
Yeah,
Barbarian,
he
that lovely
created
Christian
the
movie. He created the sword there. Back to you, sorry.
But what happened was that I think that having dealt with other creative people, writers, artists, graphic artists and stuff like that, what sometimes caused them to fear was that by creating something exceptional, then the expectations of the world were raised that
Right.
much more, and they were afraid of not meeting those expectations.
Mhm.
And so, you know, my husband was, I learned that you can be famous and not wealthy. Because he just insisted on doing what he wanted to do. He didn't pay attention to what people kept telling him, well, you should be doing this and you should, then you'd really make a lot of money. And he was actually a fairly melancholy individual who just kind of was closed in. I was part of a very small group he let in. But I think a lot of the artists that I know were afraid of the expectations of success. I
That's
think that
interesting.
was-
This is, you wanted to come in over there.
More on the comment on the it's not fear of success. I kind of from my experience, especially in high schools and things like that, it's really fear of the unknown. And success means change, and people don't like change. So it's not necessarily succeeding. I think it's necessarily the fact that there's the unknown out there. There's a change out there, and that's where I think you see this fear come in more than, you know. I think if you ask the average person, do you want to be successful? Absolutely. But when it really comes down to it, well, what does that mean?
So this is interesting. Yeah, you're coming in.
I wonder if fear is being kind of equivocated with vulnerability, because I think most people, I know for myself, you know, I have a creative streak in me. I know that I do, and I can recognize it. Letting somebody else in to see that, though, is it's putting yourself out there with whatever it is. You know, whether it's a painting, a drawing, a poem, a theater production, you're making yourself, you're vulnerable. And I don't know of anybody who isn't kind of afraid of that in one stretch of the imagination or another, that, you know, being that open with yourself and just putting whatever it is that you're doing out there to be judged, because it will be. You kind of have to be in a really confident place, I think, to just, you know, throw caution to the wind and say, you know, you either like it or you don't, but I'm going to show it anyway. You know, I'm gonna do it anyway, and if you think it's good, you think it's good. If you don't think it's good, you don't. But having that freedom, I think, takes practice. I think you have to kind of keep doing it so that you're not that fearful, so that you can get the balance of good feedback, bad feedback, whatever it is, and know that you're gonna, you know, that you satisfied some need in you, and you did glorify God. You did use your skill or your talent, or and put it out there regardless of what people have to say about you. And I think that's a step. I mean, I think it's a process that you have to kind of go through.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you right now, it's a lot scarier for me to be speaking as myself right now than to be a character and up in your face.
Yeah.
So I absolutely think vulnerability is, you hit it on the head. I think that, and that sounds even just like the story you're sharing about this man who has incredible talent, you know what I mean? But the vulnerability to allow people to be a part of that process, or his connection to this genius within himself, you know. I think though that for us as Christians, we have a freedom in that no one else ever has to see it. Granted, I think God wants us to be free to share and to be in that communion I was talking about, but also we can give him glory in things that no one will ever see. And I think that that's where his grace meets us, and that we can be a part of that practice of building something that we believe in or that we find beautiful. And that if we're giving him glory, it's okay if some of that's private, you know, and I think he meets us there. Because I hear you in that as well. Like if I was having to write something and give it to you, rather than being able to speak, which for me is much more comfortable, I think I'd be afraid. I think there would be an element of fear for me.
Have you what you were saying there? We've got some more questions coming in,
yeah.
but how often do you hide in your character on stage? Because it's an interesting. I did drama for years, and not professionally at all. All right, just did it with my own drama team, and sometimes I just loved the characters I was acting. It was so much fun, and I could hide. I was being the character, but I wasn't. I could be on stage, invisible, but visible. I don't know if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. I
He's
think
got talent there too.
yes, he does. He's still filled with drama, I think. Dramatique, I should say.
Dramatique.
Not drama.
Jim.
The fear aspect, I just want to touch on real quickly. I think if we are grounded in God's word, not to be afraid of men, what men would say, and giving it all to the glory of God, that's our confidence to move forward with our creativity. Now, I'd like to think of creativity in a whole different realm than you do.
Yeah,
A pastor's creative every Sunday when he presents a sermon.
absolutely.
How he puts it together, how he delivers it. I was a contractor for many years. Creativity in building,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know? Any of you who are gardeners, you're all creative.
Yeah.
Where you plant your plants, how you plant them, and there's a creativity there. So I think creativity extends to almost every facet of our life. And we need to be creative because it's built in us. Now, there's some areas I'm lousy at. Art in school, I dreaded art class.
I did too.
I couldn't draw. And
Yeah.
man, when we had an hour's worth of art class, man, that was torture for me.
Yeah.
But I was creative in other areas of life. So all that I'm saying is that this is a fantastic topic because we're all creative. My wife quilts, she creates in that area, you know, and so we all got gifts in the area of creativity.
It
You're
is
making
our
my point
humanity.
for me.
It is our humanity.
Yeah, it's our
The
humanity.
people are coming in here, Sue next.
So I just want to piggyback, I didn't hear the beginning, but God, we are made in His image, and God is a creator.
That's it.
So we're all creative in some way, you know. we
And
meant
that's the
to
point that's coming out. In all these areas, and I'm thinking of art, for instance. I'm a waste of space. I used to hate
Yeah,
art.
I can't draw.
I hate it. I didn't
No,
know.
no.
So you've got to find a place where you do, do take those steps and find your voice
Yeah.
or yourself. You're first in the back.
Rosetta.
I don't know who you are, but
Rosetta.
wherever you are. Yeah, go on.
Okay. When she talks about fear, it's not like sometimes like fear drive people. Like he rightly said that God that created he's God of creation. There are a lot of creativities in God and us being made in his image and likeness. But sometimes what drive other people, I would say, is reluctancy. Or they feel that this era I am is okay for me. So they just feel complacent.
Yeah, good,
Okay,
good.
then we refer it in the Bible. You see, before God uses a man, he's like, see within you your ability, your strength, and everything. When Joshua took over after the death of Moses, and he like claimed all those land, aging in Joshua 13, God told him, say, look, Joshua, though you are old, I see, I know you are advancing in age, but there is still more land to be taken.
Nice.
You see, sometimes people like have that creativity mind, but they need push. Yeah, so they need to go forward.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to swing it around a little bit into what you mentioned as a sense of community through art. I really looked forward to my retirement because I promised myself I'd get back to watercolor painting, which I had enjoyed very much in high school. There's lots of other media that I was using when I was working, stuff that didn't take very much time. But I found a wonderful group with an instructor, and by being in a group like that, you don't have the fear of putting down on paper what is really inside of you, and what you see, and the absolute beauty of creation. Especially that's where my focus comes from and what God has created. There's no way I can even begin to replicate it, but it's, the colors that I see are very intense because I guess that's the relationship that I want with God. But the community, I think, is very important in bringing together.
I think you're great. Sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off.
No, and that helps decrease the criticism and therefore the fear of what you're putting down, because it's also a learning process. It takes a long time to handle certain media when you're putting it on paper, or whatever your material is that you're working with. It's a huge learning curve, but it's fun in the process. You can make a mess.
Something that you're bringing up an excellent point of that you want that relationship with God. That I think the biggest thing I'm hoping to encourage you in even talking about this today is to engage. I think life, especially our culture, is just so driven toward product, toward just get through the work week, just get through the day, just finish, just don't snap back at your boss, don't, say something that you shouldn't say to your coworker. It becomes about all these little practicalities to reach out and to engage in creation. It's like it's what our soul longs for, but where is the time? Where is the energy? It's so hard to reach out. But something Brian and I actually talk about, Brian I think said this to me, is that God is so intimate with us. That he knows the little teeny things that bring us delight. And so engaging on that level, even on the small things, and then being able to do something in community, I feel like it's exactly what I'm trying to say. And it's beautiful. I didn't even know that you did watercolor, and I love that I'm learning that. I know there are other hands. Jack.
Bry's
Oh,
hand's
Bryce,
been up for
sorry.
some time.
Yes, Brian.
First question, are you single?
I'm not.
I think one of the things I love about working with kids is that they believe they are creators in all things. They don't, they will draw, even if they can't draw for beans, they'll draw and be so freaking proud of it, doing what they drew. And I think that sometimes we get so lost in I have to use the gifts God gave me to glorify him. And I think sometimes he calls us to glorify him in the things that we're bad at. You don't have to be good at something to do it. And so I think that's a big fear thing, is that we think we have to be good or perfect at something in order to show it to anybody. But I think sometimes God calls us to create in the areas where we don't feel comfortable in order to change us, because I think that conquering fear is one of the most important things we have to do in life.
Chuck.
Yeah, it talked about the phobias or in the creativity idea. In fact, when I was graduating from high school, I was encouraged very strongly to go on to one of the upper class music conservatory. And to this day, I sort of regret that because I had what I tried to consider a practical idea. I went on to engineering, got that degree, and the service put me in as an officer trained to fly airplanes. That's great, I love it. But I still, to this day, I'd been much happier, I think, if I had gone on to what I suggested I do, because I'd showed talent then.
Could you speak to, I think that's a great point, and could you speak to the link between creativity and hard work? Because sometimes there's an idea, say someone's writing a poem or they're doing this or they're doing that, it just comes to you and off you go. And that's creativity, not hard graft. Whereas I would say they both really come together, but speak to it.
I've heard some people say, and I think it's very true, that there are only some people who get struck by lightning. And I think people who write genius things or write some powerful, beautiful poem in, one furious night is actually exceptionally rare. And then more often it's like you're building the ark. And it takes you years and years and years. All the kind of theater that I have ever done has taken, by the last show, I feel like I'm always telling myself I don't know how I can go back out again. It takes a lot out of you emotionally, physically, mentally, but I think also art is meant to be a relationship, and sometimes it does ask a lot of you. Is this kind of what you're asking?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
No, exactly. How much graft is there, and how much, I've just written this, or just painted that, or just...
I don't think there's ever been a moment, well, that's not true. I've had one moment where I feel like it was a lightning strike. And that was actually before the last show that my theater company wrote. And we were up at 11 o'clock at night trying to figure out the ending to this show. Because my theater company writes all of the shows. We write our own shows. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, there's just no way to make this work. There's no way to, put these storylines together, connect this. And I was like, unless it's all make-believe. And it's been like a fairy tale world the whole time. And like, there are a couple moments like that, and we decided to run with that, and the whole thing was supposed to be that you were in a dream.
But you didn't just pick up your pen that minute and write the whole show.
No.
In other words,
No.
I do think there are, quote, lightning strikes after 20 years of hard work.
Yeah.
And then somebody writes
Sure.
a whole thing in one fell swoop.
Excellent
But
point,
they
yeah.
have been doing it day after day
Oh,
after
yeah.
day
It
after
grows
day.
out of.
It grows out. So something can come together in what seems like a miraculous ending. You were able to figure it out, but you guys had been working at the show day after day after, or
Yes.
even a couple of years. I don't
And
know.
I'm only 28 years old.
And you've
There
been
are
writing.
people,
You've been
you know,
writing since you were a
tirelessly.
child. So
Yeah.
and you've been making up these stories since you were a child. So
Yeah.
you've been working at your craft day after
And
day
art
after day.
comes out of, I'll bring you in then, art comes out of, what comes out of you is you've got to feed yourself. One critique of a poet and a writer was made, and they said, no, he said about himself, forgive me, he said about himself, I'm just looking at myself all the time, trying to explain myself, and I run out of things. You need more than that. And good words, good sentences, good ideas come, explode when the stuff is there. The match is put and the tinder is there ready to think. Sandy, and then you want to come in, you go next way.
This definitely, at one time Jody had a bunch of friends who were stuntmen. And they'd come to our house or at his shop, and I'd be there listening to them, talking about the next, they were all part of Hollywood, the next stunt, the next big stunt they were going to pull. And it's like, it would start off with very logistic, well, we've got to have X and with the Y and the Z and the whatever. And little by little, the momentum would build, and it was a community. And then you'd get one guy, maybe one gal, would go, oh, I know. Wonder if we do this, and boom, scratch the whole thing off and running on a completely different relay. They were some of the most creative people I've ever met in my life, and the biggest kids. And I got to serve them coffee and tea and donuts, and it was just being around that kind of creativity was breathtaking, and just being around it also helped me go off and create on my own. So I think that creativity can be a solitary thing, but I think more often than not, it's not solitary at all. I think more often than not, it's done in groups of like-minded people with a purpose, hence theater.
And can I add, I just want to add, when you say that, I just want to add, I remember getting you to do this, you and Val. And when we, I was into the Socratic dialogues at the time, Plato's Socratic dialogues, where Socrates is arguing with all these different people. Okay, they're quite famous. They've affected Western civilization. But so it's like Socrates walking around like this, asking questions, and other people putting questions, going back, bang, 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 coming back. But what's happening there in the Socratic dialogues is that there's a build-up. One is building on the other and on the other. And I remember, I don't know how many of you remember this, Romans 8. They learned Romans 8 in Socratic form. I think it was one of the best, most creative things I've ever seen the both of you doing. And it was word for word Romans 8. But you spoke to one another and built on it, and we put music to it in the end. I thought, that was just fantastic. Because suddenly the scripture itself was coming alive and exploding and all sorts of things. And I think together that can happen. Sorry, Sabrina.
I think this is more of a comment than a question, but what I hear you saying is basically an argument for why Christian art is not Christian art. We go into there's all these stores that have like all these Christian novels that have this very specific arc, and everybody has to get saved, and all of these things, or the artwork always has to be of scripture and things like that, and that. I think so often as Christians, sometimes we think our thing is not glorifying to God because it's not specifically, explicitly gospel all over the place. And I just really appreciate just hearing where our creativity fits outside of that box.
We're supposed to be living sacrifices, right? Like holy and pleasing to God, and that it doesn't need to be Christianese, to be, if you're a living sacrifice, if you're living your relationship with Christ, then everything you do, if it's meant to bring, to bring Him glory, everything is connected to that. There's no separation. And I actually think, I'm sorry if I offend anyone, but I actually think a lot of Christian-y things can actually miss the mark a lot and can be too pastel. And not reach to the true depth that we read in scripture even. And so I think, I'm not trying to go on a tirade against Christian work. In fact, I've read quite a few good things that I enjoy, but I honestly think, I don't think I need to keep going.
I think when when literature and spirituality come together, the danger with Christianese, okay, whatever you want to call it, is that you're forcing the message onto the medium.
Right.
And that happens sometimes in Christian film, it can happen. Some of the best Christian films I've ever seen were put together by non-Christians. The message was there, but they weren't trying to push. The message was strong in of itself. I just finished reading a book which is going in my top 20, that is high praise for a book, at least for me. Alan Paton, a South African writer, he wrote
Cry the Beloved Country.
Pardon?
Cry the Beloved Country.
Yeah, that he wrote that, which I've read, but this is the other one. It's a number of other ones, and it's called Too Late, the Phalarope. A phalarope is a bird, okay? Some South African bird. Don't worry about it. And I think I'm saying it wrongly anyway. I just finished reading it 2 or 3 days ago. I think he's a Christian writer. I do think from what he's saying. But man, the power, the literature holds up the message and helps deliver the message. The literature and the message are the same. They're the same. Nothing is... I know what I'm saying, I can't say it. I'm not creative enough to say this. So if you want a challenge of a read, and please get the book. I'm recommending it as an incredibly powerful look at morality, Christian morality, down the line, Christian biblical morality, and how some people blow it, but the way it's put together, unbelievable. You want to go on?
Yeah. I feel like there's been a lot of talk about fear with creativity, and I suppose just thinking, I think there is this, desire in everybody for this kind of, my friends and I just went to see a movie yesterday, and we were just talking about this, with all these superhero movies, we're all looking for a figure. It's written on our hearts, God wrote it. But at the same time, I think creativity is risk, and there is a real fear with that. I mean, if we think about the prophets, all the prophets were very creative in how they spoke to the people who related to them. Jesus, I mean, if we're going to talk about creators, right?
His narratives, his stories, his parables.
Right, all of them were offensive, but they were true. Not that we need to be offensive for the sake of being offensive, but often, like Bri was saying, I think God puts us in situations where we are called to be creative in a way that will, upset the apple cart in a way. And all the prophets, they were hated, they were killed, and there is a real sense. I mean, Jesus was the best person alive, but he was crucified. And so I think there is a real fear, but like Bri was saying, there needs to be yes, there's that fear and it's facing me, but I will defy it, in the name of God, because God empowers me. God empowers us to do that and calls us to do that. And so I don't think fear is necessarily, I don't need to fear. I think there can be a real sense of fear, but we are more than conquerors in Christ, and we can overcome.
And I think there's a challenge for us, and I want us to walk away with a challenge, because you said that what you want to do, you want to get people to do something. Think of something you maybe wanted to do. I don't know what that is. I have no idea. You can surprise yourself. You really can. I remember a number of years ago, I started tinting antique prints, 19th century prints, black and white, and I started watercolouring, tinting them. I'd never thought I could ever do that. I taught myself to do it. I don't do it anymore, but I loved it. And I thought, oh wow, I did that, whoa, because I can't draw. Jim, I can't draw. That art class, you resonated with my soul, all right? But then suddenly I had that. And anything can be, and I'm going to say one thing, then you can finish it off, just round it up. I remember I was asked to speak at a conference for the Christians and art. When I mean art, the arts, Christian and the arts. So people were poets, there were poets there were writers, singers, whatever. And they said, what are you going to speak on? I know what I'm going to speak on. I'm going to speak on the art of the sermon. The art, sermon as art form. Now, sermon, the main thing of sermon is message. That's the name. But it's not just that. For it to fly from here to there, it needs the rhetoric to carry it. It needs wings. And oh, I get so excited. I got so excited. They were all talking about guitars and things like that. And I was talking about preaching is art. Oh, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. So I go back to Jim again and say yes. And you and this young man will be showing us his art form in a few weeks as he preaches up front. So after this, you better be good. All right? Do not fear. All right? Listen to your own diatribe. Your words to him.
The tagline for my theater company is play as a child plays, with wonder, abandon, and joy. I think we forget that we are still children in a lot of ways, and that we have a Heavenly Father, and that makes us children, children of God. And so I want to encourage you that we put on so many masks, so many layers. So much has happened to us in our lives to bring us to the adults that we are. But maybe try to have a childlike outlook this week about something. Maybe looking out the window at God's creation, looking at the children playing. But I do want to encourage you to engage in some way, like Pastor Kevin was just saying, engage in small ways to bring glory to God in something that gives your heart joy. Have abandon. Yes, of course it's a risk, but if we're giving glory to God, I feel like there's no fear with God. So I want to encourage you in all that.
Let's give it a round. Before I close in prayer, just to say, next week, Jim Clouser will be speaking, and he'll be speaking on another aspect of creativity, but creating, because he travels all over the place, creating homes with Habitat for Humanity, and being a Christian, social justice, looking at the poor. How, as Christians, do we react to the poor? And Jim really does know what he's talking about, as he's been awarded a number of awards. I'm using award twice, but doesn't matter. He's been awarded a number of awards even this year for the numbers of things. So come along once again to be challenged, okay, and to have the Socratic dialogue that we can build on. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for your goodness. Thank you that you created us as creators, and thank you that you want us to play as well. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Great, everyone. Appreciate it.